So you can see here are some other examples beyond The Biggest Loser of shows that focus on weight loss and health, eating. There are many, many other examples, but these are just some of the more prominent ones that have been on the air in recent years. In general, obesity is underrepresented on television, reality TV, or fictional TV. Most television characters or cast members on reality shows would not qualify as obese. But what Litwack says is reality TV has increased that visibility. There's a greater prevalence of issues of obesity on television relative to reality shows, even to a point where there's maybe too much. So there are many shows about extreme weight loss, many shows about exercise, and Litwack says that that may lead to overexposure. Some shows are documentary formats, just sort of following folks around as a part of their journey. Some are framed as competitions. The question becomes whether doing this as a competition is healthy. People should all want to lose weight. Do they have to lose weight as part of a competition? Some people would say that's problematic. In general, reality TV presents the visual rhetoric of liveness. So if you look at the way in which reality TV is shot, it gives the sense that you're watching something as it happens, for lack of a better term, live, even though we know it's recorded. It couples the proximity of here, because you feel like you're here, you feel like you're there with the folks that you're watching on reality TV, and at the same time, it feels like it's happening now. Even though we know full well that reality shows were taped many months ago, they're not occurring as we watch, with the exception of shows like Big Brother that are occurring as we watch them. So that rhetoric of liveness, the "you are there," has always been a component of reality programs. As we've talked about before, reality TV makes a claim that these are real people and you're watching their real lives. As I've mentioned before, most reality shows make a great deal of effort to hide the artifice of television, so that you don't see camera crews, that it doesn't really call attention to the fact that this is a television show. It's supposed to feel like you're just watching. That's why you don't see the camera crew on Cops. Is why the Real World for many years worked quite hard to hide the camera crew. Not always the case now, as I've mentioned. Catfish, as a reality show, very clearly shows the crew. So there's been some morphing in that sense, but ultimately it's always about so-called real people. So if it participates in liveness and it has real people, then live and real and what Litwack calls alive are all part of the reality TV sensibility. When you factor in obesity TV, the shows that we're talking about, the alive part is even more prominent because these shows promise to actually keep you alive. They not maybe you, but certainly the people on the show. But if the shows are calling to people at home and people at home are identifying with either the coaches on these shows or the subjects, the show very much is invested in keeping its central characters alive. Reality TV, what Litwack says, is a technology of conduct. It involves self-managing subjects. The narrative of reality TV, especially relative to obesity TV, is about self-management. Reality TV in general is about managing one's persona and how they're viewed, but in particular, obesity TV is about managing yourself to get better. We've talked about this lots of times. This is certainly part of neoliberalism, the idea that the individual is driving their destiny, and that the systematic and structural barriers in the way are not as important as the individual motivation, and that's very prevalent on these kinds of shows. The neoliberal self is present not only on reality TV in general, but obesity TV in particular. So if we talk about um, the biggest loser both repudiates and embraces consumption. So the idea that people consume too much and become obese is a narrative on The Biggest Loser. Um, the idea that contestants are told to stop consuming junk food, stop consuming pop, and start producing things like muscle mass or self-esteem is a central narrative to The Biggest Loser as a show. Um, it's interesting though, because both the participants on the show and the viewers at home are sort of encouraged to participate in very consumer driven practices. So on one hand, they're being asked to stop consuming because consuming leads to weight gain and leads to obesity. At the same time, that kind of encouragement to consume is very much about the commodity of reality television. So there's a Biggest Loser cookbook, there's Biggest Loser food that you can buy. There's a Biggest Loser resort you can stay at. These are all very commercial in nature. They are inherently about consuming in some form or another. So for the show to be critical of consumption and promote it at the same time is an interesting dichotomy. Television in general has been coded as pacifying, that people kind of sit and get lost in watching television. So that's been a critique of television since the very beginning. Even more so now, when it's less of a community practice. When fewer people had televisions, the act of watching television was a communal event. Now that still occurs, but is probably less often the case. Viewers are framed as passive and inactive. The theme of the couch potato is one that has been around since the beginning of television, and it's the idea that television is just going to wear you down and break you, and then all you're going to do is watch television. So of course that was the rap on The Simpsons for Homer Simpson. So from a metaphorical level, if television is obese, right, there's just too much. There's too many shows to choose from. There's too many celebrities on television. There's too many Kardashians, if you will. Then the television itself is obese, and in theory, reality TV is sort of the poster child of TV obesity. There's so much reality TV, so many spinoffs, so many housewives, so that even TV needs to go on a diet, according to the argument that Litwack is making. Uh, the shift in television via reality TV addresses some of the dominant perceptions of television. So reality TV, especially relative to these shows, shifts from a site of passivity to one of participatory activity, whether you're voting for someone on American Idol or you're getting healthy by watching these shows. The idea is that reality TV has made audiences less passive. I'm not sure how true that is, but that's the argument that's being made here. So reality TV shifts from thinking of television as a pre-programmed technology to a medium of empowerment. You can get better by watching TV. That is not something that people would have said watching TV in the 50s or the 60s or the 70s. That wasn't a theme, and now that kind of personal empowerment theme is very prevalent on reality TV in particular. The textual strategies of what Litwack is calling obesity TV. So you could have the documentary format. In the documentary format, it's about a place often. So what's going on in this place that's making people obese? And we'll see examples of that in at least one show. So the Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution is a good example of a show that focuses on place. He's traveling to a place and making that place better by making individuals better in this kind of documentary format. Another way is to think about the body of representation. So how do we expose what's really going on with obesity? So it's not so much about the place, it's about other activities. It's about parenting. It's about um, behaviors. So it's not necessarily about a geographic place leading to obesity, but it's about the way in which culture has increased obesity. So the show Honey, We're Killing the Kids is a good example of not being focused on place, but being focused on behavior. What is causing obesity and how can we address that? So here you have a scene from Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution. He is on the show working to reform school lunch programs, to change attitudes around food and exercise. It's not quite as spectacular as something like The Biggest Loser. He's in homes, he's in schools. It's not nearly as flashy as some of the other weight loss shows. Um, for this show in particular is focused on preemption, and preemption starts in the community. So that's why he's working in schools, he's working in homes, he's working particularly with children, to preempt the obesity crisis in this particular geographic location. Um, it moves obesity from an individual problem to one connected to an entire population. So while the show itself is still invested in the neoliberal ideology, it is very much connected to the problems associated with a population of people, and you'll see that in the following clip.